Hello, you are currently listening to WRUW-FM 91.1 Cleveland. Welcome to A Different Drum. I am your host, Matt Hook, where the more you love music, the more music you love. Today I am joined by Chicago singer-songwriter Rich Krueger. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Matt.
So Krueger is a, let me know if I'm pronouncing this right, neonatologist by trade.
I'm a neonatologist.
A subset of pediatrics focusing on infants. When he's not working in pediatrics at the University of Chicago, he is also a critically acclaimed singer-songwriter. His album, Life Ain't That Long, earned a coveted A grade by Robert Chistago, the Dean of Rock Music Critics. Listening to the album quickly shows why. Each song is a great masterpiece of storytelling balanced out by Krueger's fantastic sardonic wit. Very Randy Newman-esque. Now, to give you guys an introduction to his music, here's the first track off Life Ain't That Long, A Stupid Broken Heart.
Day don't pass me by when a perfect stranger doesn't tell me that I remind them of someone they once loved or knew had died. I smile back at them as if to say, oh, thank you, 'cause it's good having been seen for having tried. Like you, I'm here to raise a glass to all my lonely, foolish dreams. The cup spills over sometime when the trouble starts to swell. No right mind and no one wants to break down to a stranger. So that's why God made bars and girl bar singers and one-night cheap motels. Friend, you look like you're drunk enough, you might understand me. Let me pull on your coat a while till the night tears us apart. There ain't nobody sober that's going to talk to me tonight. They've all heard this one already about me and the girl bar singer, the stupid broken heart. Not before I've had a few more than a few. I'm staring up at the stage and wondering when she'll get started. A few more and every song she sings will be about me too. She sings about loneliness like it was something she invented. She's kicking at my head from the inside. Shatters my illusion that I just one day might be happy. And she leaves smiling before I can drink up all I can't hide. Friend, if you're my friend, you'd think you'd tell me. Oh, but I'm too drunk to listen, and the nights tear me apart. There ain't nobody sober that's going to talk to me tonight. 'Cause they've all heard this one already about me and the girl bar singer and a stupid broken heart.
right, so the song you just heard was A Stupid Broken Heart by Rich Krueger off his album Life Ain't That Long. The album was released earlier in 2018. Today I'm joined by Rich himself via Skype. So,
Hi.
what is the meaning behind that song?
Well, the joke of it is, it's about unrequited love, which is the best kind because it's cheaper. But I wrote it at the bar, at a bar in Chicago called the Gallery Cabaret, which is a place that has music every night of the week. And I wrote it at the bar watching a friend of mine named Julie Jurgens play. We all had crushes on her, and I'm no different than anybody else, and it just sort of came out that way.
So that's the JJ who you put in the
That's
lyric sheet.
JJ. That's in fact JJ.
One thing I really liked about that song is that there's those really great one-line kind of sense of humor. I really love that one line, but hey, you look like you've just drunk enough that you might understand me.
Yes, yes. There's a lot of drinking that goes on in the gallery, as does at many bars. I've just written a new song. It'll be on the next record called "It's Always Christmas in This Bar," about the gallery. And the first line of the chorus is, "It ain't only the piano that's been drinking."
Is that a Tom Waits reference?
It's a Tom Waits reference. That's right. It's the old song, "The Piano's Been Drinking."
Not me.
Not me. This is everybody's drinking, including the piano.
Man, I love Tom Waits.
Oh, I love Tom Waits. Fantastic. It was the first or the second concert I ever went to when I was in college. It was amazing. It was an amazing event. It was well before Rain Dogs. It was around, I guess it was 1979. It was incredible. He had like a jazz trio, and it was incredible.
So was that before or after his voice got all gravelly?
Well, it always was kind of gravelly. It's gotten much more gravelly over the years. I actually met Tom Waits once. I was coming home from a medical conference when I was in school on the East Coast, and I got in late at night and at O'Hare Airport, and was taking the subway back home. I lived on the South Side. And it was late at night. I got on the train, and there was nobody else on the train except an African-American lady with a couple of shopping bags and Tom Waits. And he was living in Chicago at the time, working on a show at Steppenwolf Theater called Frank's Wild Years. And I actually sat next to him and talked to him. And once he realized that I was just annoying, but that I didn't want anything from him, he was happy to talk to me and said a lot of wise things. And he talked about he asked me about what I write about, because I had just started writing at that point. This was right after Rain Dogs came out, and it was it's a memory I'll cherish forever.
You met him around like 1987, would you say? And that was like the same time you just started out as a songwriter.
Right. It was about 1980. It was almost certainly 1987.
Man, I'm not a religious man, but that sounds like a sign from God.
I think it's perfectly possible that is exactly what it was. It was certainly, it was incredible. He said a lot of smart things. That everything you give to music it'll give back to you, which is absolutely true. He's definitely my candidate for the greatest living songwriter. I mean, he's incredible and so prolific, and there's a lot of great songwriters, but he's my pick for number one.
So, I was wondering, when did you start working on the songs for this last album?
Well, you mean recording or writing?
Writing.
Well, some of them are a little bit old. Some of them were written before 1990, well, before I moved actually before 1998, when I moved to Los Angeles for my career. I was an assistant professor at UCLA in pediatrics. But some of them were written back in that time. I used to have a band before I moved to LA called the Dysfunctionals, and some of them were songs we had done, and other ones we hadn't done, but were songs that I had written and would perform solo if I did a solo show. But some of them are very new, and most of, certainly "Stupid Broken Heart" was written in the last couple of years. A couple of them were written in the last year or so that are on the record, and so it's kind of a broader swath. The next record will all be kind of the same. There'll be some new songs, and there'll be some actually older songs. I have a big collection, a big song bag of songs of mine that I still play a lot regularly, and most of which have never been properly recorded. And so that's what we're sort of working through the pile.
So, since sounds like you've been writing songs for a very long time, why did it take till this year to put out like a formal album?
Well, part of it was time, part of it was coincidence, and it's something that I'd wanted to do for a long, long time, and I had thought about it more seriously since moving back to Chicago from Los Angeles and then a small stop in Albuquerque, New Mexico, about 2010, and it was just the stars sort of aligned at the end of 2016. Someone wanted a song of mine for a play in Chicago. So we needed a recording, and so that's where the process began. And I knew where I wanted to work with because I had been working with a bass player named Bill Cavanaugh, who's on the record, who has a studio in the western suburbs of Chicago. And he just did a marvelous job with the record, and he's very easy to work with, and I knew that already. So I wanted to record there, and we just sort of there wasn't a big plan starting out. It was basically to try to just record songs, collect a basket of deplorables, and then we'd see what happened. And then it turned in that there were more songs recorded than could go on one reasonable record, and so this is how this got together. We enlisted friends, both friends in Chicago and friends particularly in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because I have a real good connection with a lot of people there. Great scene for music, great scene. Can't recommend it highly enough. And they play all over the record. And we just sort of kept working on it, and then, a few things happened. I got into a folk festival in Kerrville, Texas that I'd always wanted to play at, and so we made an EP out of what was done so far. And then finally put the record together this fall to get it out this fall to release in January. And it's just, we've been really fortunate with getting some tremendous reviews that are sort of beyond any reasonable expectation I had. To think that Robert Christgau would review my record and like it is crazy, but it happened. So I'm all for it.
How did you feel when you saw that he gave you that A rating?
I almost cried. I mean, you have to realize that when, I was in college in 78 to 82, and he was writing for The Voice then, and Lester Bangs was alive then. And, between those two and a couple of other people, they basically invented rock criticism, serious rock criticism. And I subscribed to the Village Voice, and I read Christgau every week, and it was an enormous education for, learning about music, because I was a kind of a open book at that point. And the insights were amazing. The writing was great. And so to me, he's a huge hero. And I'd never met him before. We did I know what I had played for him once back in about 1996. We have a strong connection with a group from the 60s called the Holy Modal Rounders. Peter Stamfel and Steve Weber and other people later on, like Sam Shepard, the playwright and actor. And I'm very close with Peter Stamfel. He's kind of like my second father. And Christgau likes Peter very well. And there was a Holy Modal Rounder reunion that happened in 1996, and my band was basically the band behind those guys. And Christgau was in the audience and wrote it up. So he was aware of me. So maybe that was a little bit of a step forward with at least throwing the disc in his CD player. But to get that he listened to all the way through and liked it is to me a testament to. It's just overwhelming to me. It's quite amazing, and it gets people to listen. You know, it gets other people to listen, which is really what the goal of the record is to get it in front of people and have them listen to the songs. I did it because I felt I owed it to the songs.
Yeah, you owed it to the songs to kind of get them out there so people could listen to and enjoy them.
Yeah, I mean, I take, you know, it is avocational. I'm a physician, is what I make my living at. I have the luxury of not having to make a living as a musician, so at some level I don't have to compromise in that way, in any way. But I definitely want to play for an audience, and I want to have feedback, and I'm kind of, in a sense, a writer's writer, and the best feedback I get is when other music professionals like yourself or other DJs or particularly other songwriters dig what I do. That's what really kind of gets me off. It feels like I'm on the right track, and that he's responding well to songs that are the newer ones on the Chris Scott, particularly responding to songs that are really newer on the record, means I'm at least continuing to do better work than before.
So speaking of playing in front of an audience, do you have any plans for any sort of regional tour?
Yes, that's in the works. We're trying to. My goals are fairly modest because I work clinically a lot, both in Chicago and in various places around the country. Next week I go to Iowa, and then after that Mississippi, and then back to Chicago to work doing neonatology. But our goal is, once we made the record, is to basically try to set up a sort of a residency in Chicago at one or two places where we're basically playing once a month, and people come out and know that we're going to be there and play. And then the other is to try to go on to, maybe one or two 5 to 10 day tours regionally. And so, and we have places that we know we have friends that can play. One we'd like to go back out to the East Coast. We played the Sidewalk Cafe in November. And it would be great to do a show in Ohio on the way out there. We have a good friend who's outside of Columbus who has a band who we have a lot of mutual interest. And so we might try to come out and play Ohio and then head out east. In 2019, I'm definitely going to be playing. We're going to go to Europe, either with a band, or if I can't afford that, just myself, and play some dates in England and Scotland and Ireland and probably the Netherlands. So these are going to happen, but they're, again, it's because I have the luxury of a job that can pay the bills. I don't have to make money doing these. I just hopefully try not to lose a lot of money while I go play, and introduce myself to other audiences, which is what I really like to do. I mean, I enjoy performing a lot.
It's always good. So why Europe? Why is that a priority?
Well, we're getting a lot of airplay over there, first of all. And so I think that the stations are playing our stuff, keep asking us to come out and play. And wouldn't you want to go to Europe if you could?
That's true. If I had an excuse to go to Europe, I would probably take it.
There you go. It's just basically the same idea. I mean, that's the opportunity to play for other people in other countries sounds thrilling to me. I have a lot of friends that do that, although they're primarily trying to make livings as musicians, and I have enormous respect for that. I'm just glad I don't have to do that for any number of reasons. But I definitely like the idea of going to and playing over in England and seeing what people think.
Again, if you were just tuning into this broadcast, we are currently talking to Rich Krueger, Chicago-based singer-songwriter. So, who are some of your biggest musical influences?
Well, as a lot of musicians, I listen to many, many things and have a lot of influences, which probably percolate through the music, and people appreciate. I would say that the biggest influence that I had, why I write songs, I think, is because of the Belgian songwriter Jacques Brel. For those of you who aren't familiar with Jacques Brel, he was a songwriter in Belgium. He was from a middle-class family of box manufacturers and was married and had some kids, and basically one day just sort of walked out with his guitar and went to Paris and wrote some of the most challenging, amazing songs I ever heard in my life. And I was introduced to him when I was a child. There was a show that played for a long time off Broadway called Jacques Brel is Alive and Well and Living in Paris, which were translations or adaptations of songs of his by two songwriters named Eric Blau and Mort Schumann. Mort Schumann, very, very famous R&B songwriter with Doc Pomus in the 50s. And my stepfather had a copy of the cast recording, and I played it to death, and I would sing the songs at the top of my lungs, and the songs just cut to the bone. I didn't necessarily understand everything when I was a child. There's a song called Next, in French called Au Suivant, which is about a man who's, from the point of view of a man who's was traumatized when he was young because his first sexual experience was in an army brothel. And I used to sing that at the top of my lungs when I was a child, having no idea what words like brothel and gonorrhea and other things meant that were peppered in the song. And, that just stuck with me. And I wanted to write songs that were that powerful. And then as I grew up and listened to other things, I was very, very heavily influenced by punk in the late 70s. That's when I went to college, and so there's a lot of influence. There's a lot of mention in the record, for example, of the Sex Pistols and Sid Vicious, and these were, very influential. To me as well, and other songwriters as well. I mean, I just like great songwriters. So Neil Young, Elvis Costello, Tom Waits, of course, Paul Simon. Loudon Wainwright III, Randy Newman, of course, all of these, Richard Thompson, and I could go on and on. These songs are just written in the back wall of my skull, and they'll never leave me. And I just wanted to play in the same game that they were playing in, and that's what led me to write songs.
So you became a songwriter just because you loved listening to songwriters.
Yeah, and at some point I had to. It was just something that is, most artists, good or bad or for whatever reason, are at some level compelled to produce their art. And I think that that's true, certainly true of me. But what got me started writing specifically, again, was sort of a happenstance. I had friends in Chicago who had a cabaret on campus at Carter College, and they would do improvisational comedy, but they'd have an opening act, and I wanted so badly to open for them, but they insisted that whoever opened for them did original material, so I had to write songs. So that's where it started, and that was in '85, and then within a couple of years I started taking it to the North Side bars, and it just sort of grew from there.
So I'm wondering what your songwriting process is like, because a lot of your songs are very much stories. So
yes.
Do you try to sketch out a narrative and then fill in the details, or how do you write them? Not
to evade answering the question, it is to me a degree of a mystery. I mean, what usually happens is I'll just be playing on the guitar or on the piano and find an interesting harmonic progression that suggests a strong melody, and that will be sort of a background ground and escape, and that will lead my mind to wander into some area, usually creating some line of lyric that may take me years even to figure out what it means. But what this does is it sort of at some point what crystallizes when it works is that this is going to be a song. The idea of a song comes along, and then the songs tend to write themselves. They're also very personal. I'm not the kind of person that writes songs about my difficult girlfriend or the bad breakup or those kinds of things. Although those are totally legitimate ways to write, I'm more interested in sketching out the details and painting a picture for people. And it's not a process where I will sketch out an outline of a song and that as one might write a short story or a novel or a play or something like that, where you say, well, this is going to be the beginning and this is going to be the climax and this is what the points I want to make and outline and all that kind of stuff. My writing just sort of naturally flows out, and then it's a process of editing it so it makes sense as a song and tells a story. But the origin of all the songs are very clear. I mean, it's like, this is what I was thinking when I began writing the song. This is where that came from. And by making it personal, with Sam Shepard, the playwright, once said something like, if it's not personal, it's not worth doing. I think that's probably true.
Yeah, if it doesn't matter to you, why would it matter to anyone else?
That's true as well.
All right, so the next song I wanted to play is one it's actually a Christmas song that you did that I really enjoyed a lot, because I feel like Christmas songs are always very much hit or miss, and I think you definitely hit it by doing a very interesting kind of take on the standard Christmas song.
Thank you very much. Again, this was a personal experience. This sort of started. I guess at some level when I wrote this, and this was one of the earliest songs I ever wrote, was the idea that I wanted to write a Christmas song, and I liked Christmas music. I like Christmas, like a lot of people, but most of the sentiments are fairly hokey, and I thought it could be more meaningful. At least, especially since at a spiritual level, Christmas there's a lot of meaning in Christmas besides just sort of getting gifts. And I reflected on when I was a child in the church parking lot, like a lot of church-going people, when there's always a late night service on Christmas Eve, and we would go, and it just I just reflected on that, and the song sort of spun out from there.
This song is called It's That Time Again.
It doesn't seem very long ago, outside of the church, I watched parked cars disappear under Christmas snow. It was about 11 and the service was about to start. I could have stood there all night, but I was only 7, so I went in and played my part. I guess it's the cold that I like the most, but Christ, if he were here, he'd probably spend his birthday on the Gulf Coast, drive along the water and watch the sea hogs sway, then have a few beers and stroll onto the Gulf, probably fish all day. And it's that time again, 'tis the season for shopping and cartoons and a little goodwill to men. But after giving Dad that perfect Christmas tie, after all the parties, after all the clothing drives, once the New Year's resolutions get tossed like empty bottles of champagne, then it's back to routine, and thank God everything's back the same. We seem strangely blessed once all the lights are put away. Charity may begin at home, but always seems to end on Christmas Day. Two shepherds tend their flocks by night. It's late, they're cold, they're more than a little tight. One says to the other, man, is that some kind of star? No, man, it's probably just a passing car. And it's that time again. Sometimes among the voices of angels, you can hear the voices of men. Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, prospero año y felicidad. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart. Oh, I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. Oh, I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart.
Right, we just experienced Christmas in March here at WRUW with Rich Krueger's It's That Time. Again, I'm joined by Rich himself via Skype.
Hi.
So that was a great song. Sent some shivers up my spine a little bit there. I love the Jose Feliciano quote you put at the end.
Oh, thank you very
It's a
much.
very nice
Yeah, I
touch.
love that song. Great song.
When you wrote this, since you said you wanted to do a Christmas song that didn't have a lot of the hokiness of the standard Christmas songs you always hear every holiday season, how do you think this avoids that?
I think it sort of reflects on, it mentions the elements of Christmas that are familiar to us, at least in this country. The cartoons, the shopping, and of course snow. it kind of reflects on, not a very unconventional idea, which is that perhaps there's more to it than that. And reflection of, well, what would, if Jesus were coming back, what would his view of things? And in mine, he goes fishing. And then there's a small surrealistic moment at the end where the shepherds are looking at the star and somebody says it was just a car. It just sort of flashes on a variety of different ideas that, it's just the time of the year. It tends to be the time of the year where people reflect on, giving and being generous, and then they move on as quickly as possible after that. And perhaps it's a song not as much for Christmas as it is for after Christmas.
It also seems to kind of reflect just like a general, almost like a loss of wonder, with that shepherd being like, "Oh, it's not a star, it's just a car or some other kind of plane thing."
Right. It's like, what's really wonderful and what's really banal. That is definitely dealt with in the song, I think.
I really also your dig at New Year's resolutions. I also find very great and accurate here too, where they're tossed away like empty bottles of champagne, and then you thank God that everything's back the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely true.
Yeah, I think so. I don't. Again, it was a very early song, but I don't think. It was based on real observations and real thoughts that were meaning. Again, it was personal, So again, that you react strongly to it, I think, is a testament to that. There's something there in that song.
It's definitely it's a universal feeling. Like at least definitely in the USA, that kind of Christmas comes. It's more of a time to really get gifts than kind of do any serious reflecting for people now.
Yeah,
I would say
absolutely. It's easy to do that. I mean, I just remembered, as I said, it was a very early song that I wrote, and I would perform in front of this cabaret that my friends had, and one of the actors in the cabaret and friend was a guy named Mark Holman, who is also a musician and songwriter. He was the one who actually went on and wrote the music for You're in Town, the musical, which won Tonys. He won a Tony for his work. And I remember distinctly him telling me after he heard that song, and this would have been 85, 86, that it touched him, and that he spoke specifically of the reference in the song about that I used the line "Christmas snow," and he sort of, well, that's a very interesting idea. Sort of like I know what Christmas snow is. It makes it transpersonal. I mean, everybody has their own view of what a Christmas snow is, and so it definitely connects in that way.
because we all just have such different, and everyone has their own family traditions surrounding Christmas.
Exactly.
How do you put yourself out there as an independent artist?
In terms of getting people such as yourself to know about me, I mean, the goal is to try to get the songs in front of as many people as possible. And thank you to you and your colleagues who play the music on the radio, or people that find out about it online and you listen to wherever they listen to. But there's about 1.5 billion CDs, personal independent CDs, made about every hour in the United States. And so to try to get attention, to try to get somebody to sort of raise above the general background, there's only a couple of ways to do it. One is if you get very, very lucky and some very, very, very famous person champions you publicly. And then the other way is to hire professionals who work to sort of get the music in front of people and get the record to radio stations and try to goad them into listening to it and considering writing about it. And that's the route we took, is they basically hired a publicist and a record promoter. I mean, considering the amount of money that goes into music promotion at record companies, the spending is rather modest, but I do feel strongly it was absolutely worth it. I mean, this is how the record got to Robert Christgau and how Robert Christgau wrote about it. He didn't have to write about it. I mean, just because I have a professional sending and communicating with him doesn't mean he had to do anything. But without that, there's no way to get the information to people. So if you're a burgeoning songwriter, I mean, you should try to get it in front of, that's probably the most efficient way to get it in front of people. There are other ways through trying to get individual blogs interested in writing about you. Everyone and their mother has stood on a rock and said, I'm a music critic, and writes a blog about music. And some of those can be very, hope they have listenerships and people paying attention to what they're doing. But it's a hard go to try to get people to look in your general direction. But then once they do, you want to have something that's worth hearing. And so that's why we invested a lot of time and energy and personal integrity into trying to make as good a record as possible.
What other pieces of advice would you give a young up-and-coming songwriter?
Well, I would get a good, steady job. The music business. Well, the music business always changes, and so the ability to try to make a living at it, I neither understand nor have. Unfortunately, don't have to try to do that. I have a respect for people that try to do that, but unfortunately, it's a really hard slog. And so, but I think it's important to do what you want. I mean, and try to make your music, it's not worth doing just to in some way get famous or something like that. It's worth doing only if you've got something to say. And I think if you have something to say, people will listen.
If you build it, they will come. Philosophy.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. I mean, whether they spend a long time with it or not, once they're there is another question.
So speaking of young songwriters, are there any modern, singer-songwriters that really stick out to you?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, the people that I listen to, I like Jeffrey Lewis a lot. He's a songwriter, sort of part of the anti-folk movement out of New York City with Kimya Dawson.
What is the anti-folk movement? I'm not
well,
familiar.
I don't know. You'd have to ask somebody like him to really define it. But I think it has more to do with that it's much more rough-hewn than something that's more polished. And it's trying to play for probably different audiences that one you'd consider a traditional folk audience. But from the point of view of what, the instrumentation, which is basically acoustic, and the point of view of telling personal stories and being funny, it's very much folk music, and it's homegrown. So, and Jeffrey's just a genius. He's also a comic book artist. And participated in actually some serious graphic novels as well. He's marvelous and is worth checking out. He's probably made a half a dozen records. He's also a friend of Peter Stampfl's and has done some collaboration with him as well. I like M. Ward. I think he makes wonderful records and wonderful songs. I'm a big fan of his. I think the song Vincent, which is not on the Transfiguration of Vincent, which is the record he made after his friend Vincent committed suicide, but the record before that, which has a song called Vincent on it. It's just one of the most amazing songs I've ever heard. Just absolutely telling, talking about basically, it's a reminiscence of running into somebody he knew who played, guitar, and talks about the song that he's just written that he wants to show him, and I just think it's marvelous. There's also a lot of the people I listen to are friends that play at open mics, in all of the places I go visit open mics, because when I go around the country doing clinical work, I try to find a place to play locally, and play, particularly in Tulsa. So there's just some fabulous songwriters there, Cody Clinton and Jared Tyler, Wink Burcham, and of course John Fulbright, who's getting quite a lot of attention, and who's another friend of mine. I like John Moreland a lot, but he's one of the people from Tulsa for some reason I haven't met yet. There's a great songwriter in Chicago named Ross Berman IV. He's a really young guy. He's our new Bob Dylan. He's one of the most amazing songwriters I've ever seen.
Oh, who is that? Wait, repeat that name again?
Ross Berman.
Ross Berman. Is he also from Tulsa?
No, he's in Chicago.
Oh.
He's in Chicago. And he plays around the open mics and gigs when he can. And what he again, going back to having a straight gig, he also has a straight gig, and his is professional wrestling journalism. So he's very much involved with blogging and doing radio shows about professional wrestling, that's his thing, you know.
Pro wrestling.
And so,
wow.
Pro wrestling, you know, it's an interesting combination. And you know, my old colleague from my old band, Vernon Tanger, who's now up in Detroit, he's a monster. He's just playing a friend of mine from Ohio, who's now in Ohio, Aaron Heidel, he's terrific. And so, I mean, again, music is an integral part of being a human being. People, you know, would play music around their homes and play with their family and sing with their family, and that's really the natural way to do things. Now, where I find those kind of communities is usually in bars and open mics, and people share their music, and open mics are definitely an acquired taste. But as often as not, if it's a good open mic, there'll be magic that happens. You'll hear things that you've never heard before, and you'll become part of a community that really enriches your life. I know that's been enormously true of my life.
Especially since you're able to travel and really see so many different music scenes across the country.
Yeah,
it must be awesome.
I mean, it's incredible. You know, I've been in Redding, California, and I've played there a number of times, and played in LA whenever I get to LA, back to LA. When I lived in Albuquerque, I played in Albuquerque. I always play in Tulsa when I'm in Tulsa. Lafayette, Indiana, Hammond, Indiana. Wherever I go and wander with my guitar, I'll find a place to play and share my music and let other people share their music with me.
I guess every town has to have a bar, right?
Almost every, yeah. Mississippi, some of them still have dry county, so they don't have bars, unfortunately. But other than those, you're going to find a bar most places.
Mississippi still has dry counties?
Believe it or not, absolutely. In fact, I'm going down to Amory, Mississippi, which is about 30 minutes south of Tupelo, in a couple of weeks to work clinically. And it's been a dry county since Prohibition. And they actually had a vote in the last, I guess, year to consider whether they wanted to change and to become a wet county. And the dry county won again. So they never changed. And that surprised me, but that's the case. I mean, what people do who drink there go just outside of the county and buy something from a packaged goods store and bring it back.
I'm sure I'm sure the county line is just lined with bars and liquor stores as far as the eye can see, right?
Pretty much. That's pretty accurate.
So I'm curious, when there's no bars, what are the music venues? Are they just like community centers and things like that?
Yeah, they have, you know, or people will sing in their homes, or they'll sing at a coffee shop, you know, they'll do the coffee house open mic kind of a thing. And so you have to investigate and look around for it. Sometimes it's a little bit of work. Fortunately, with the internet, it's a little easier. Most people at most places that have music will let people know that online, and so you can seek it out fairly easily now. And that's what I do. I go somewhere. If I haven't been there before, I immediately go online and say, where's the open mics? Where's their music? And make a beeline for it.
Gotcha. So we're almost running out of time here, and I wanted to play one more song of yours, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about it quickly. I was going to play The Gospel According to Carl.
Mm-hmm. So that song is about the problems of conscience. The problem where I think it's telling, and it's an older song, but it's it's an idea that really hasn't gone away, or a problem that hasn't gone away, which is that many people sort of go through their lives not reflecting on the terrible things that they've done, and where it's sort of deep in the human race not to take responsibility for one's own actions, and those that do, that's kind of where nobility comes from, or virtue. And we're certainly in a time now where there's a lot of not taking responsibility for one's actions, without going into any great detail about any particular politician or otherwise. So the song is about a guy named Carl, and Carl is a used car salesman, and he develops a crisis of conscience by developing a conscience, which is a crisis if you sell used cars for a living. And I made it into a gospel song, with partly related to the backstory that I created about the character Carl, where he has sort of a religious background, and then it sort of reflects on an event that happened in his life that makes life, that sort of caused a crisis of, essentially a crisis of conscience, and perhaps not being able to live with himself anymore. And that's where the song came out of. It also came out of buying cars and listening to car dealers talk to each other, and finding it like usually feeling like you're in some sort of David Mamet play of a bunch of very amoral people who are not aware of that the way they look at the world is problematic. So that's where the song came out of.
Again, thank you so much for coming on the show, Rich. It was great to talk.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much for playing my music, and I hope your audience enjoys it very much. They can find my music at www.richkrueger.com. Rich Krueger spelled RichKrueger. You can find me on Facebook as well, and there's a lot of information on my website in terms of how to buy my music, or stream my music, or download my music, or other interviews and things like that. And I look forward to meeting people that enjoy listening to my music.
And again, I think your music's also on most major online retailers, correct? Like Amazon.com, Apple
Absolutely.
Music, Spotify.
Absolutely. CD Baby, Amazon.com, iTunes, Spotify. Those are all places where you can get the music easily, both downloading it and physical CDs.
Again, this song is called The Gospel, according to Carl. Thank you so much for tuning in. I always appreciate getting an hour to talk to some of my favorite artists and share some great music with you guys.
Wearing a big bow tie. The time was I could sell you anything, even the pyramids along the Nile. Just crack open the odometer and roll back the miles. Flash a smile, rattle those keys, then watch the beater roll off the lot, just like a set of old bones. But if you don't get 50 miles before the brakes just fail, well, even Jesus had no guarantees. Yes, I was blessed with an honest faith. I took religion at an early age. I played this cripple with an offering plate, as Daddy saved souls from a soapbox stage. And when he passed, he left me that gift. Christ, a man could sell you anything. I mean anything. But damn, my soul to hell somehow missed it away. Behold, a broken salesman's fall from grace. Can't you hear the bells? Oh, there's a church at the end of the road. A congregation's redeeming. From up here on the steeple, you can look down at all the people praying. Praying, take me back before I lost my faith. Take me back, take me back. But I can look you in the eye, shake your hand, then lie straight to your face. Those were my glory days. No pricks of conscience to get in the way. Who'd ever guess it'd be over? And there were no accidents to shake my confidence. Since that news, I've hardly been sober. They had me clean out my desk. I swore they'd be begging me to come back. When this new guy, he leaned back in my old chair and said, look pal, don't make us laugh. I guess he knew my wife, who said the same thing a week before, then slammed the door. And they're so sure I got nowhere to go. You can tell them it's me and my maker tonight. Can't you hear the bell ringing? There's a church at the end of the road. The congregation is singing. And from up here on the steeple, you feel a little closer to our Jesus. Here that it looks like rain on page 4 of the newspaper parasol, next to the photo of the family who lost control of their vehicle on the way home. And Christ, the time was I could sell you